Benchwarmers and college football fans, welcome to a very new content, new kind of series on our YouTube channel here at the far end of the bench. My name is Jimmy Pilato. I'm one half of the hosts you can hear every week on the Far End of the Bench podcast. Hi, Boomer. Yeah, I know. Hi, Boomer. I'm excited to start this series because we are going to be giving out our top 10 best teams every week, because college football has been absolutely crazy, and I don't necessarily agree with all the rankings that come out. I know Niko doesn't necessarily agree with all the rankings that come out. So this will be new weekly content every Friday to get you set up for a full slate of college football. And it'll be a good chance you guys can debate us back and forth, call us idiots, whatever you guys think about it. But it'll be some fun interaction. So without further ado, actually before we get into everything, if you are a fan of sports betting, be sure to use mybookie.ag. And when you sign up, use promo code BENCH, BENCH, and you'll double your first deposit up to $1,000 and get in on the action. MyBookie is a super easy way to have the most favorable odds. It's super simple to use. Be sure to get in on the action. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. Now let's get into the rest of these rankings. We're going to start by looking at the first three teams that I got off the list, the teams that just didn't quite make the top 10 list in my opinion. And I'm starting with Oklahoma State. The Cowboys are 6-0, playing very well in the Big 12. They got some tougher tests coming up. They'll play Texas. They'll play Oklahoma in the Bedlam game. So they have their opportunities to vault and play better competition than what they have so far. The good thing about Oklahoma State, if you're a Cowboy fan, you've played up to your potential and you've shown the committee and the other voters and the ranking people what you can do. The next team I have, the number 12 team according to my standings, the Ole Miss Rebels. 4-1, just coming off a huge shootout victory against Arkansas, 52-51. It was a wild day out there in good old Mississippi. But the Rebels are very good. Matt Corral is proving that he's not some flash in the pan. He's been consistently putting together good performances. And the Rebels have something going now that they've got their Alabama game out of the way. They can still finish with 1 or 2 losses and find themselves in a New Year's Six Bowl. And then my 13th ranked team, Oregon, the Pac-12. A lot of places have them still inside the top 10. I dropped the Ducks out of my top 10 to number 13. I just don't know if they have a tough enough conference schedule to be able to jump over some of these other teams. Now that Alabama has lost a game, it opens up the door wide open for a lot of other schools, and I just don't know if that benefits Oregon as much as it did before Alabama lost. Starting off at number 10, we have the Michigan State Spartans, led by head coach Mel Tucker. They are 6-0 on the season. Their signature win is at number 24, Miami. Earlier this season, they won that game 38-17. I don't think that it's a mystery to say that Mel Tucker has a pretty bad reputation around the state of Colorado, but it's pretty hard to deny that he's gotten this team from a 3-7 schedule, or I believe they were 3-7 or 4-6 back in 2019, and now the Spartans are 6-0. They're in the mix. They could very well, after a couple weeks here in the Big Ten, as some of these other giants play each other and start eating themselves, the snake starts eating its own tail, the Spartans could jump up and be in the top 5 very quickly. They're very physical up front. Not quite sure if they're going to be talented enough to play with the top teams, but Michigan State so far has shown enough to be put at number 10 for my Week 7 rankings here in this NCAA football season. Coming in at number 9, the other team in Michigan, the Michigan Wolverines, also 6-0. Their signature win so far this season is at Nebraska, 32-29. Jim Harbaugh is back. I don't know what else you can say, but after everybody and their mother thought he was going to be fired last year, including myself, Jim Harbaugh has gotten the Wolverines to a place where they've only trailed in one game, and that was this past weekend at Nebraska. It's their best game that they've had so far, their most competitive game. Are they great? Is it one of those great Michigan teams? No. But the Big Ten, like I just said, talking about Michigan State, is going to start beating themselves up. And if Michigan somehow gets lucky, which has not been in the Wolverines' favor recently, if they somehow get lucky and remain undefeated, find themselves in the Big Ten championship game, the Wolverines obviously have the pedigree that they can be in the college football playoff pretty easily. So that's why Michigan is my number 9 team in the country. Number 8, it's the other team in the rivalry between Michigan and Ohio State. That team to the south, the Ohio State Buckeyes, coming in at 5-1. Their signature win back in week 1 against Minnesota. Crazy to think, Buckeyes have I don't think they've played a ranked opponent while they've been ranked so far yet this season, besides Oregon, and that's the one game that they lost. So the Buckeyes are not in a place where we're used to seeing them. This feels a little bit more like the Cardale Jones Ohio State than it does under Ryan Day and the Urban Meyer teams that were so long-standing and so dominant. CJ Stroud, I think he's good. I'm not putting any of the losses on him. I just don't know if the culture is still there. We talked about when Ryan Day first took over, he's going to have to start bringing in his own culture and take over from what he was inherited with Urban Meyer, and I don't know if he's quite done that. Doesn't seem like they're all moving in the right direction in Ohio State right now. If they win out, which it looks like they could with their soft schedule, they'll be fine, and they could very well find themselves back in the playoff mix. If they lose another game to Ohio State, Michigan State, the Buckeyes will not be close to the playoff and might not even be in New Year's 6. But they're sitting at number 8 right now going into week 7. Number 7 team in the country just fell to now in my rankings, the number 2 team. But the Penn State Nittany Lions have their signature win versus number 22 Auburn, that 28-20 game in the first whiteout since the pandemic started. I really don't know. We're getting the Ohio State-Penn State matchup this weekend. It's a huge, huge game. It's going to have major implications on how the rest of the Big Ten season goes. After Ohio State lost to Oregon, you could have asked me who's better, Penn State or Ohio State. I probably would have still said Ohio State. Seeing these teams play now for about a month and a half, Penn State is a very, very talented team that a lot of people were sleeping on in the offseason. They've proven that under James Franklin, they're still explosive. Sean Clifford just continues to play better and better, never putting his team in a bad situation, which is all you need to do when you have the talent that they have. And now the Nittany Lions find themselves at number 7, not out of the playoff picture yet. Still have to go through their gauntlet of a schedule, but right now, if they beat Ohio State and then play Michigan and Michigan State back-to-back weeks, they would be the hottest team in college football if they end up making it to the Big Ten Championship. I would love to see what the Nittany Lions were able to do there, but that's why they come in at number 7. Number 6, by how the mighty have fallen. The Alabama Crimson Tide, 5-1, signature win for the Crimson Tide against number 11, Florida, at Florida, 31-29, although that's starting to look like less and less of an accomplishment the more the Gators play. It's Texas A&M. I don't know what else to say. Johnny Manziel was in attendance, so we all should have known that the fix was in, the jinx was in. But the Aggies just smacked Alabama in the mouth, and it took Alabama too long to recover. It was very similar to the 2019 LSU game and the 2018 Auburn game, where you're used to these Crimson Tide teams coming back and being able to show in the face of adversity, and that just never happened. Crimson Tide were never able to get on top of it. It was a big shootout, and it's interesting now moving forward. Alabama could still find themselves in the playoff, but they're not going to be in the SEC championship because they just lost to a team on their side of the division. Georgia's still undefeated, and you have Arkansas and Ole Miss that could also finish 4-1. 10-1. So who knows what's going to happen there? But for now, Crimson Tide sitting outside the top 5 at number 6 for me. Number 5, this will probably surprise some people, and this is where you can chirp me at FEOTB Pod, because I'm sure nobody's going to agree with me, but I have the Kentucky Wildcats at number 5. 6-0, signature win against Florida, 20-13. They are not just winning the games that they should be. They've been a solid program building themselves up for the past few years. They are not only beating the teams that they should be beating, they are dominating these teams. They had over 333 yards rushing just this past weekend. They play Georgia this upcoming week, so it's going to be proven real quickly whether this is just a flash in the pan or they're going to be legit. But right now, I like what I'm seeing out of the Wildcats. I like what Kentucky looks to be able to do, and they've gotten through a good portion of their difficult parts of the schedule. Got to beat Georgia, find some way to beat Georgia. I don't know how that's going to happen because they've only given up an offensive touchdown to Auburn so far. But if it can happen, Kentucky's in a very good spot to push themselves into the playoff. So the Wildcats are my number 5 team in the country. Number 4, Cincinnati Bearcats. 5-0, undefeated on the season. Their signature win came 2 weeks ago at Notre Dame in South Bend. Cincinnati this is as close as a Group of 5 team has ever come to being in the college football playoff. They have the year of 2020 where they built up their resume and almost upset Georgia in the bowl game. You need that as a Group of 5 team to have some sort of establishment of pedigree. Now this season, they're beating all of their conference opponents and putting up gaudy numbers on offense and defense. Beat Indiana on the road. Beat Notre Dame on the road. You're not really going to have another tough task, but once you get into your conference championship games, if you're finishing undefeated right now, it's going to be very difficult for some of these other schools to say, no, Cincinnati doesn't deserve to be in the top 4 because Alabama should be there, even though they didn't make a conference championship game. Cincinnati, under Spencer Ritter, they're doing what they can. Their next biggest game is going to be against SMU at the end of November, so we'll be looking forward to see how that game shapes out. If they can keep the things going, Cincinnati's in the playoff as it stands right now for me at number 4. This one may seem a little bit strange if you've been listening to the podcast the last few weeks, but I bumped the Oklahoma Sooners, who are 6-0 on the season, up to number 3. They had their signature win this past weekend in Texas. It's a neutral site game. They were technically the away team in the Cotton Bowl, 55-48. I'm glad that it was not Spencer Rattler who did this. It was Caleb Williams, who, shout out Caleb Williams, came in and balled out, put the Sooners on his back, and basically dragged them across the finish line in the Red River Shootout so that they can beat Texas and they can solidify their 5-year-in-a-row winning streak. So the Sooners did a lot of good things. Lincoln Riley might be my top head coach. If I have to make one adjustment at halftime so that I can win the game, I'm probably going to go talk to Lincoln Riley because his team in the first half looked like absolute crap. In the second half, they could not be stopped. So Oklahoma's got a lot of good things going. If Caleb Williams keeps the ship going in the right direction, they beat Baylor and Waco, which is going to be a tough game for them. They'll be right back in the college football playoff for another year in a row under Lincoln Riley with Caleb Williams or Spencer Rattler at quarterback. Down to the top 2. Number 2, I have the Iowa Hawkeyes, 6-0 coming off the win at home against number 4 Penn State, 23-20. In a game, I want to talk about that game because there was a situation that kind of put Iowa and the direction of the team, at least for the 2021 season, on the map. And Penn State had the ball. They were going down the field with about 7 minutes left in the game. They get a 15-yard penalty on 3rd and 14 with six or 7 minutes at about the Iowa 40. You kind of have to decide whether or not you want to take the penalty, give them an extra offensive play and push them back if you trust your defense, or do you decline the penalty, have them punt from where it is, and see if your offense can drive the length of the field. They decided that they were going to take the penalty, put trust in their defense, and on the next play they actually got an offsides call, so it ended up being 20 yards of extra room that they gave, and nutted up on the 4th down play and or 3rd down play and did what they had to do and got the ball back, and in those next 6.5 minutes drove down the field and scored the game-winning touchdown it was a touchdown to beat the Nittany Lions at home. It was a great game for Iowa. Really proved that the Hawkeyes, even though they're led by their defense, their offense was able to come up in a big position and do well for them. And now, moving forward, they're pretty much in the driver's seat for the Big Ten. They'll probably be the undefeated representative in the Big Ten championship game this season. Right now, they sit at number 2. Now we get to go to the number 1 team in the country. It's not that hard to figure out. The Georgia Bulldogs. Their defense is just insane. Uber talented, most talented defense I can remember at a Division I college in a couple of years. It's gross what they're able to do. Now they gave up a few more points to Auburn that I'm sure they're not happy about, but they had not given up an offensive touchdown up until week 6 of the college football season. The Bulldogs are dominant. And right now, all they have to do is get past Kentucky, who's their only other undefeated opponent. They're going to be in the SEC championship game in Atlanta. They're going to probably blow through whoever they're playing because this just seems like Georgia's year, and we'll see what the Bulldogs can do under Kirby Smart in the playoff. If they have an Alabama to deal with, I'm not necessarily that confident. If Alabama, which I don't think they will, but right now, if Alabama doesn't make the playoff, this is Georgia's year to win it. And if the Bulldogs don't win it, I I highly doubt that program will see a national championship unless there's a big change made. But that's who I have at number 1. Thank you for checking out this week's edition of the FEOTB NCAA Top 10 Rankings. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that, had a little bit of fun. Remember, if you want to chirp me or agree with me, at FEOTB Pod on Twitter, or comment on the video below. We'll interact with you guys that way. That's this week. We'll catch you guys next week. Nico will have his Top 10 Rankings coming up here on the Far End of the Bench YouTube channel.